Good afternoon. This is Rachel with Infused Meadows. I'm making apple cider and applesauce, and I thought, bring you along. I will not be canning this on video, but I will recommend that you go to part 2 of the candied jalapenos to get basically the how-to on canning if you don't know how to can, okay? You're pretty much going to do this the exact same way because we're cooking this apple cider on the stovetop. You're not putting everything in your jars raw, so you don't have to worry about a long canning time. You're literally going to just put the hot stuff into your jars and follow that video, okay? Make sure your jars are sanitized. You inspect your jars, that everything is nice and clean. You're going to fill these to about a 1/2 inch headspace. And once your water comes up to a boil, now if you're water bath canning, and I didn't explain this in the other video because I don't water bath a whole lot. I like my steam canner. If you're water bath canning, always make sure that water is about 2 inches above your jars, okay? So what have I done? Well, I'm peeling 8 apples, and I'm just cutting them into wedges and putting them in here. In that, I have filled my stock pot 3/4 of the way full of water. To that water, I've added in 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of whole cloves, and 2.5 sticks of cinnamon. I would have put 3 in, but I used a 1/2 stick the other night when I made coffee, and I forgot. So, if you want more of a cinnamon flavor, feel free to go ahead and add another one. I'm doing 8 apples for this batch. So you're going to peel your apples, and like you've seen me do, you want to core them. No, I do not have a peeler. I don't want one. I won't be getting one. I have absolutely no problem peeling myself and not wasting, okay? That's just how I feel about it. So, you're going to peel these. If you want to use the peels for your chickens, I recommend you take your apples and you get yourself some boiling hot water on the stove, and you're going to dip those apples down that boiling hot water for 10 seconds. That will get this wax that they put on the apples, that'll get that off. You'll literally see the wax melt away from your apples, okay? And then you'll peel them, and you can give those skins to your chickens. I just don't recommend feeding them the waxy skins, but that's just me. I don't recommend feeding anybody a waxy skin. Again, just me. Sorry. Okay, so this is going to cook for 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm just telling you what I'm doing, and then I will pause and bring you back because nobody wants an hour and 15 minute long video. Not to mention the amount of time it would take to upload that kind of video. Anyhow, so an hour and 15 minutes. At the end of an hour and 15 minutes, I'm going to taste this to make sure I've got a nice apple flavor. Apples. I'm using Pink Ladies. You want a good cooking apple. You do not want an apple that once it touches, any kind of heat, that it just disintegrates, because that's a waste of applesauce. Well, that's a waste of anything apple, if you want me to be completely honest with you. Alright, so you can use Gala, you can use half Gala, half Pink Ladies. You can use Apple Crisp. You can use green apples, Granny Smiths. Now, I would not do full Granny Smith. I would do half and half because of the bitterness and that tartness that comes from Granny Smith apples. So that's what I recommend, okay? You can obviously make this and change it if you want to. It's all based off your flavor, your taste. So, at the end of an hour and 15 minutes, I'm going to taste this liquid and make sure that it has enough apple flavor in it for me. And that's another reason the salt is in there. Salt is a flavor enhancer. Now, obviously, you use too much salt, and it can hurt you. You'll pucker for days. So, I've only put in that 1 teaspoon of salt, okay? And then, like I said, I'll taste this. And then from there, I'm going to start with 1/4 a cup of brown sugar. And I'm going to stir that in and let that melt into my water, into my liquid. And then I'm going to taste it again. Now, depending on the apples, you may need as much as 3/4 a cup of sugar. I do recommend the brown sugar because that molasses really enhances the apple cider. It also adds a really nice flavor to your applesauce. And I will be making both from these apples, okay? And I'll show you every bit of it. I don't know yet. We'll see on time if this will be one long video or if I'll do one video, you know, here's the apple cider and then the other. That doesn't make any sense though, so I'll just do one long video. So when it comes to canning, you only want to, once this is all done, you have all of it the way you want it, you're going to pour this into your quart jars, 1/2 inch headspace. You know, clean them, make sure your lids are good and clean, put those on there finger tight the way I've told you. Process those in your steam bath, or sorry, your steamer or your water bath for about 15 minutes because you're not putting everything in there raw. You don't need it to cook. You've already cooked it on the stove, okay? So, we'll be back. I'm going to get this over on the stove and get it going medium-high heat at first. Once this starts boiling, I'm going to turn it down because I just need it to simmer and not boil. So, it'll be about a medium heat, okay? We'll be back. I just wanted to really quick say that the first 30 minutes of this, I cook it with the lid on. And then the next 45 minutes, there's no lid on. At which point I taste it. I told you what I do from there. And then I let this cook for another 15 minutes once I add the sugar. So that way I can taste it. The sugar is nice and blended. I stir it and I still have plenty of time to add more sugar and to create that slight syrup. We're not going for an actual syrup. So I know some people are going to think, well, sugar and water makes a simple syrup. Yes, but to a certain ratio. That's not what we're doing, okay? So, lid on. 30 minutes on the timer, which I have not done because it's not anywhere near what I need it to be. So, we're going up to 30 minutes. And then once this starts to boil, I'll turn it down to a simmer. And you just watch yours. You'll know when it's simmering. That's where you'll stop at. And that's where your timer will go, okay? So, we'll be back. Just wanted to tell you real quick that I thought about it. I'm going to go ahead and add another cinnamon stick to my apple cider. I like the cinnamon flavor, and this, even though it's 3 sticks, it's still not going to be overpowering for that much water and all the apples. It'll actually just be a nice, not even quite a spiced apple cider, okay? I'll be back. So while my apples are on their last 6 minutes, I've gone ahead and I've gotten my big cutting board out. I have my bowl, and this is just something I use. It's a little stained because it gets well used. I use it for when I do pumpkin puree, when I make my enchilada sauce, all kinds of things, which is why it's stained. Good usage. I like it also because it's big. But this will hold my apples and stuff. And then what I'll do is I'll pull out the clove and the cinnamon stick. Because I don't want that in either. I don't know if you can see, but I've got my jars over there. They're clean, sanitized, ready to go. So I've got them upside down on a flour sack towel. And if you're wondering why flour sack towels, they don't leave anything behind. There's no, you know, none of that fabric stuff that comes out or comes off on your stuff. So I have that, and then I have this that I'm going to be putting my apples, the apple slices into, okay? And I'm going to pull out my immersion blender, and I still need the towel that I'm going to put on this, and then eventually I'll get my steam canner out, because this is a multi-step process. But not all of it will be on film, or, yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, we'll be back. Okay, so my timer has gone off. I'm now going to start adding my sugar. So I'm going to add it 1/4 cup packed, okay, at a time. And then what I'll do is I'll stir that in. And then once I know it's good and dissolved, I will taste it. And if I need more, I'll add it. But I'll do it, you know, 1/4 cup increments. I've found that with these particular apples, you know, 1/4 to 1/2 cup is usually good. But everybody's taste is different. So if you make this and you get to this point and you're like, well, she said 1/4 cup, that's for me, okay? So you're going to do what you need to do. We'll be back. I don't think you need to see me put this in and stir it and all that good stuff. So we'll be back. And this was one of those times where I need another 1/4 cup. It's just not quite sweet enough. So I'm going to add this. and then we'll be back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got this for scooping out just the apples, and I will skim the top, put my apples in. Now obviously your apples have been cooking for an hour and a half. So I also look as I'm scooping, if I see any of the clove, I will pull that out, and I have a paper towel over there that I'll put that and the cinnamon sticks on so I can throw that away. Anyway, so because I don't want the sticks anyways, into my applesauce, I don't mind if I get, if I miss one or two of the little clove heads. That's fine. That's completely fine. But I do look for it and try to make sure that I avoid that as much as possible, especially those sticks, okay? You don't want too much liquid into your applesauce, or else you end up with a really runny applesauce. So this is draining into the bowl as I'm pulling these apples out. And then what I did was, and I didn't show it, so I apologize. I had something else going on at the same time. So what I normally do is the last 10 minutes that it's boiling, I actually stand here, and as each clove comes to the top, in that bowl, I pull it out, and then that way I get as much, if not all of them out. Now if you have those little tea bags, feel free to put your clove into those little tea bags and drop that in there. I just don't do that. But I think I've gotten most of the clove, if not all of it, out. I'm seeing my cinnamon sticks. So, as you can see, they've expanded quite nicely. So I'm going to get all this pulled out. You see what I'm doing? I'm going to do this with every bit of it. Once I get my apples done, they're going to go into this. Okay? Apples are going to go here. Liquid's going to go here. And then this liquid's going to go into the jars. But I'm going to get my cinnamon sticks pulled out, and I'll finish separating all this, and then I'll bring you back. Okay. So I've gotten all the apples that are floating on top. So what I do now is I just pour this through so that still catches any bits of apple that is in there. And once, like right here, this is now full enough to where it's starting to touch, I grab a jar. That can drain right back in there. I do have my little cannon funnel. I don't always need it. It just depends. So there's my next jar. I'm going to repeat the process. So you've seen what I've done. I'm going to continue. Okay, so I got 3 quart jars out of this. I'm wiping this, and I've got my steam canner loaded. And then we are going to put our lids on. And I've shown you, keep your lids in hot water. There's always one or two that says it wants to stick. There we go. Sometimes this happens when the whole thing doesn't feel right. I will change that lid out. I feel like it's just a sign. I could be wrong. Half turn. Now when you have bulky jars like this, then when your When all this claims it'll do 7 quarts, it will not, because these are way too fat. So you'll end up, I think I can usually get 5 in here. Alright, I'm going to put this on. Where's the hole? We're going to wait and get that going. Let me go grab my immersion blender and we'll be right back. Okay, I have my immersion blender. I can't remember if this is loud, so if it is, I apologize. Applesauce. Let me go grab my spatula because I forgot it. Okay, spatula. So, all you want to do, unhook, clean this off. And that's it. You can eat this applesauce. My kids always took applesauce almost every day with their lunches, you know, to school. So they'd have their little sandwich, their little applesauce, sometimes some carrots and some ranch dressing. I use this sometimes. I always use this for dog treats. And then, because there's nothing in this that will hurt a dog, okay? And I don't use a whole lot of cinnamon. You've seen that. And the cinnamon's not in this, although it's in it, but I didn't grind those sticks. Anyhow. So, you can make muffins using this. You can make cakes, breads. You can eat it by itself. When my kids were little, this was one of the treats that they could get of the evening, you know, after we'd had dinner. If they wanted a little snack, you know, around 7:30, I would let them have either slices of apples or applesauce. My son loved the applesauce, especially if you put just a little bit of extra cinnamon and sugar on top. I don't know why. It's just how he liked it. I would do carrots and ranch, celery and peanut butter. I'm trying to think, you know, healthy snacks. My mom the same way, slice up an orange for them. But this was always, you know, it was something that they both liked. And so I've always tried to do my own homemade applesauce because it's easy peasy, as you see. And then you can, so if you fill this up, you want that same thing, about a 1/2 inch headspace. And then you would just throw this in there with your, well, actually, I probably wouldn't, because this is thicker and a lot of people are going to say it's got to go longer. It doesn't. As long as that comes up to your bowl, 15 minutes, you've done all the cooking on the stove. Everything's done with it. But for those that want to be all whatever, you can let this go in there for 20 to 30 minutes, okay? Whatever makes you feel better, I guess. Anyway, that's how you do it. Once these are done, it's going to be the same thing as part 2 on that video. Once this gets up to where I need it to, I will set my timer. At that point, this will go for 15 minutes. And then I will turn the heat off, set my timer again for 15 minutes to let that sit in there. Because if you open that lid, as soon as your timer goes off, there's a good chance those jars will crack because of the temperature discrepancy between inside there and inside your home, okay? So always give it its rest time. And then I will put it on this. I will put a towel over it so that everything stays all nice and cozy. And the jars should pop to say that they're sealed within about, usually anywhere between instant to 15 minutes. Okay. Once they're sealed, take those rings off. Always label your jars and then store. They're good for a couple of years, but always pay attention to that lid, because if it ever undoes, then, you know, something can get in there. Anyway, this is just going to get a coffee filter on top so that it can cool. Once it's cool, I'm going to put the lid and ring on it, and it's going to go in the refrigerator. I hope that you try this, and if you don't can it, that's fine. Just put it in a big jug, put it in your refrigerator. You don't have to can this up, by the way. The broth can go right into a jug and in your refrigerator. Drink on it. It's great hot or cold. I hope you give this a try, and if you do, I hope you love it, or at least like it, and if not, I hope you find the recipe that's out there for you, and as always, have a wonderful day.